Hello everyone, this is Rufus, of course. This is the real me. And I just want to speak to friends, mate. It's really to friends. Could call some of you subscribers, people of City Church, and to friends that we have in different parts of the world. As most of you know, we've been in Hong Kong for 17 and a half years, planted a church here, and from this base have traveled around the world into many, many nations, preaching the gospel of grace, and it's been such a pleasure. Hong Kong has been such a blessing to Glenda and I in terms of we've learned so much and learned how to grow in grace and wisdom, and it's left for us a personal legacy of pleasure and fulfillment in the people of City Church International Hong Kong. Just amazing character and humility and goodness that is in them. Their love for one another, their love for the gospel, and their love for the kingdom, and their honor that they shared and gave to Glenda and I, and released us as their pastor for many, many years. They released us to travel for on average 6 months a year to other nations. So it's been an amazing base. It's borne fruit around nations and has borne fruit right here in Hong Kong. But in 2019, we began to feel, as we talked, Glenda and I, that something was beginning to shift. And we are aware of change coming. Personally, I didn't know the COVID was coming. I respect pastors who picked it up before I did. But certainly in 2019, Glenda and I felt God speaking to us that we must cancel all travel in 2020. And this was a big thing for us because for 30 years we've been traveling to nations and leading local churches at the same time. But we just felt you're saying cancel all travel and you need to stay in Hong Kong. And I want you to transition with City Church. I'm preparing you. Basically, he's preparing us to leave. Now, you know, when you first hear that, it doesn't hit you immediately. And so that's what he was saying. But we just knew we need to stay. So we canceled all our trips. But anyway, COVID arrived that January of 2020, as you all recall. And it was a time where we could be here. We could transition this church into Sean and Bonnie's hands. And all of that's been done beautifully and successfully. It's been one of the easiest transitions for Glenda and I. Sean and Bonnie have been extravagantly generous, gracious, made room, celebrated us. They've not felt insecure, and they've not felt just to get rid of us. They're not threatened. And it's been so wonderful for City Church people to see this kind of dynamic taking place. This is how it should be. Father and mother of the house gave birth to the house, handing over to the emerging leaders that have all the credibility with the house. They've been faithful for so many years, and it's just been a smooth transition. But it's been in the time of COVID, in the time of all kinds of negative things that we know about, and yet we believe it's gone well. There's been times in these 17 and a half years that, I've struggled to adapt to the context I'm living in. And yet, to my amazement, the Hong Kong people have adapted to me and my Western ways and Western culture, and have really taught me how to actually see integrity and humility that I just assumed that was my rights because I came out of a Western culture. And I think that, and I've told people this many times, I've often told people that I've learned more in Hong Kong than I believe I've taught, because Hong Kong has taught me so many things about character, family, patience, kindness. And one of the things that is tearing Glenda my heart out as we think about leaving is that we've built such intimate, close, honest, humble, transparent relationships with Cantonese, Chinese, Hong Kong people in City Church International Hong Kong. And it's been one of the most difficult things to say we're going to be going. And when that moment comes, I don't know how we're going to cope with that. We trust God for grace. But at the same time, I know that they are feeling something of that deep grief and pain. They only heard for the first time last Sunday. And it's a shock to people. It's a shock. You can't prepare people for this. This has been a bonding. This has been a church with people that have been so generous to Glenda and I. Generous and open. Generous in every way. Generous to release us to go. Not complaining about our travel, but actually supporting it. Just recently we supported certain countries that are going through war and terrible stuff and people starving. We asked City Church to support that financially, and they just gave so generously in these hard economic times. So this church is fills our heart. It fills our minds. I told them on Sunday, when we recently we were still able to meet physically, and when we meet, it's like the glory of God comes over. People prophesy, people minister, people give testimony. Everyone is invested. The house is like a living house. It's not like a few elite gifted people. It's like we talk about the aggregate anointing, the community, the family. And so that's what we are leaving. And we don't know how to tell these people. Now, can you imagine? We don't know how to tell them how much we love them. And we just pray that they know that, because we stayed in my Western way. I'm sure I've so misunderstood people so many times, and they've just been gracious back. But it's one of the hardest things to do, to walk away from Hong Kong now and just to leave this church. Our joy is that we will have ongoing connection and visits back to minister and actually just be with the City Church people. And so just wanted you to be clear, everyone, that this has not been an easy choice, and this has not been something just fickle. This has been something that has been weighed up. We've been accountable to apostolic ministry outside the house. We've shared this with our closer leaders recently. But I tell you, we're leaving with our hearts secure and confident that the integrity of this house and the leadership of this house will continue to multiply the vision that we invested into City Church. And we see our Hong Kong being led more and more by Cantonese people. And we still got all our vision. I said to the church on Sunday, we want to see 24 throne zones, 24 communities planted all over Hong Kong. Doesn't matter how long that takes. It could take 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Doesn't matter. We've got a long-term view into this city. So we're leaving geographically. We're not leaving psychologically, spiritually. We're leaving physically, but we're not leaving in our hearts. We are here, and we've invested, and we love this house, and we're going to walk alongside and honor this house. This is what I believe, that every human being has 3 phases in their life. The first phase is just getting the foundations of the kingdom built into you. Your second phase, if you've been faithful in the first phase, the second phase is you begin to produce fruit from those foundations that have been built into you. And if you're faithful in that, your third phase will be the greatest phase. It will be the greatest, glorious fruitfulness. My father said, I can't tell you what's in your third phase because I have not given you the frame yet, and you don't have a frame for your third phase, but it's too big for you to comprehend right now. So we're not going back to Australia to retire. First, we're going to go back and deal with our own properties and the practical things, the administration of things, see our family, and then we're taking a 3-month, maybe a 3-month sabbatical. Not maybe a sabbatical, but maybe 3 months. We're not sure how long. Could be 2 months, could be 4 months. Well, Glenda and I are just going to be sweethearts, traveling around, not preparing sermons, not traveling to minister, but actually traveling to spend time refreshing ourselves and spending time also being clothed in prayer and waiting on God for Him to give us the creativity and understanding about our next phase. We are leaving for the simple thing. We've been faithful for 17 and a half years in Hong Kong and to the nations from Hong Kong, and we've been faithful to obey the Father to move on. We've had apostolic confirmation from Peter, from Tony Ard in Australia, and Robin Ard, and many others. And we announced this to our church. Of course there's pain. Of course there's anxiety. Of course there's a feeling of deep emotion. Glenda and I have wept and wept and wept. We've had to say goodbye. We'll be saying goodbye to our 2 grandchildren now, Sammy and Ryder, to Sean and Bonnie, and a magnificent church, of wonderful people that have loved us and loved us and loved us. We are actually tearing our hearts apart. We're tearing away. It's like Velcro. It's not going just because we've had enough. We've obeyed him. We're confident and we're sure of that. And heaven will be the testimony in our rewards about that. But we are so honored that God is taking us into the third phase. We will come back and visit Hong Kong. We'll minister into this church. There's so much online things we can do and Zoom that we can continue to do. So thank you for listening to this and catching our heart. And we've been desirous to communicate this to you clearly and well. And so those of you who have been faithful subscribers and people supporting us, please continue to do that. Please continue to help us go into our third phase and multiply all the good things. As we go into this third phase, God is going to create more open doors and more supernatural fruit. So please be partners in this. Please continue with this, and you will see the fruit of your labor or your investment in our lives, and we gratefully thank you for that. So bless you guys and thank you.